Welcome to Fantasy Football Today Dynasty. I'm your host, Heath Cummings, joined today by Dan Schneier, Jacob Gibbs. It's the Beyond the Box Score crew on FFT Dynasty. We are going to go through the numbers behind the numbers over the next 45 minutes to an hour and tell you guys what you should be reacting to from a Dynasty perspective. Dan, I'll start with you. Thanks for being back on the show again. Tell everybody what you guys have been doing over at Beyond the Box Score.
Yeah, well, this is a natural match made in heaven to do a Dynasty Beyond the Box Score crossover, because a big part of Beyond the Box Score is going beyond the box score with data and film. And that leads to, in my mind at least, Dynasty observations, things that you can look into, players that are maybe overlooked in redraft leagues. And so we have 3 shows a week now. We did a bunch of offseason content. We have the flagship show every Tuesday, which you'll find at 2 p.m. over on the YouTube feed and its own podcast feed for Beyond the Box Score. We have Jacob's solo show, and then we have a data-driven show, and that's a data-driven show, by the way, with Ryan Heath. That's the Wednesday, Thursday. So that's the lineup. Jacob probably knows it a little better than I do from a detail standpoint. But Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday over on the FFT feed on YouTube, and then its own feed on podcast. So please rate, subscribe, review, all of that.
Yeah, we're doing waiver wire, all the good stuff for you today. That's the flagship show with Dan. Kind of like we did last year, just a classic show, just helping you understand what the heck just happened in the previous week. Wednesday is literally like every position, every team, everything you need to know, usage-based stuff. And then Thursday is matchups. Looking forward to the next week.
Awesome stuff. Go check it out. Go subscribe. Hit the like button. Leave a positive review. And I think you guys probably knew where we were going to start today. I say that to both Jacob and Dan, but also to the listeners, because there was a bit of a joke that I couldn't do a show without saying Harold Fannin's name. Well, I'm certainly going to say his name today.
Let's go.
Okay. As much as I was excited, Jacob, about Harold Fannin, he was my tight end 13 in Dynasty this summer. So like 10 spots ahead of consensus.
Yes.
I see a tweet today. Is Harold Fannin tight end 5 in Dynasty now? And he might be. He might be. Like I went through and ran Twitter polls with Harold Fannin, Jacob, versus Tucker Kraft, versus Dalton Kincaid, versus Kyle Pitts. And there was one more. I'm forgetting the name, but that's basically my 7 through 10 at the position in Dynasty. The only one that Harold Fannin lost was to Tucker Kraft. Are people getting too excited about Harold Fannin, or was this like the most encouraging round 3 tight end debut ever?
It's too early to know, right? But that sounds about like where I'm at. I haven't done Dynasty rankings. When you said Tucker Kraft, I was like, I don't know about that, because I think Tucker Kraft is like a pretty special player with the ball in his hands. Like, we've seen him do it over a larger sample size, some of the stuff that we think that Fannin can do. But then there was a part of me that's like, well, Fannin maybe can win down the field and win as a route winner more than Kraft can. So maybe he's even bigger, It's kind of the what's in the box, versus like we already know that Kraft is really good. It's really easy to be excited for him. Everything leading up to this point suggests that he's really good. He's only been playing tight end for 4 years. He just turned 21 years old. We have only seen him be super successful, and then he gets the draft capital to back it up. And right away, a team changes the way that this is the exact same coach that we had last year, different offensive coordinator, but Kevin Stefanski's offense changes the way that they use David Njoku, changes the way that they use the offense to feature this player. They're running Wildcat for him and stuff. Like, he's getting used all over the place. So it's a very exciting time. I don't know about pushing him all the way up to tight end 5, but he could get there. He really could.
Yeah, I think that the thought was that he passed TJ Hawkinson last night because of TJ Hawkinson's performance. That's not the way that Dynasty really works. We're not doing that. I'd still prefer Hawkinson. But Dan, I think from I had one of the other polls that I put up was, let's say you were kind of a middling team, and you weren't going to you were hopeful to contend this year, but you're prepared to hit the eject button, and you get thumped in week 1, and you lose George Kittle for the next month, and somebody sends you a trade offer and says, I'll give you Harold Fannin for George Kittle if you want to start the reboot right now.
It's probably a little rich at that point. Like, throw back a 3rd round pick to me at least. Come on, give me something to work with here. I'm letting you get George Kittle for the playoff run, but it's not the worst idea. And I think with Fannin, the really interesting thing is, as we tracked him throughout the offseason before he was drafted, Jacob and I, and you as well, Heath, the profile was very flawless. And then it's like, I almost felt like people were talking about him like he was a 24-year-old rookie, but he's not. He's a young rookie. I think the only issue people have with Fannin was the way he ran on film, and it didn't look natural, or he kind of has like a different style of getting open, but it works. And there are a few plays from the film I watched of his debut with the Browns where I was like, this dude is also going to be a freak after the catch and going to be really difficult to bring down. I think Stefanski has learned that through the offseason, through having him through training camp, and he's used that. And the best coaches in the NFL are not the ones who fit players into their scheme. They're the ones who fit their scheme around players. And Stefanski is that kind of coach, and he understands the talent that he has on this football team at the skill positions. And Fannin, it seems like he believes, is one of the most important players on this offense. So I don't really see why it would change. Like, this is, I mean, losing Flacco would hurt, obviously. Yeah.
I'll say one name, Jacob, before I want to get to one more Brown, because we both like Dylan Sampson a lot.
Tillman.
But I'll say the name. I got the tweet overnight. This is just Isaiah Likely.
Oh, it's like a Likely. Yeah, I can see that. But we like Likely in Dynasty when healthy.
Remember, you guys remember week 1 for Likely last year?
Right. Yeah. I get what you're saying. And that could,
from that standpoint.
Yeah. Where we overreact a little bit to week 1. And that absolutely could be the case, especially for this year as we look at, Joe Flacco and all that. But yeah, if he is Isaiah Likely, I think that's a good thing, and like all of the upside based stuff of like what he could be based on speculating about his collegiate stuff is better than Likely.
Oh, right. There is a difference between that happening in the first game of your NFL career as a 21-year-old and that happening in year 2 as a 23-year-old. Dylan Sampson, listen, nobody looked good running the ball for the Browns at all. Jerome Ford, though, is clearly not as good at anything as Dylan Sampson. Quinshon Judkins is back. We don't know if he will play this week. Were you surprised? I'll stay with you for a second, Jacob, about how much they used him in the passing game?
A little bit, and I think it was definitely unsustainable if you look at like his route rate. He was targeted on, I think, over half of his routes. So that's, Joe Flacco is going to check down, is willing to check down, but I do think that was kind of an aberration what we got in week 1.
Also great. Yep. Sorry, go ahead, Heath.
No. I just wonder, Dan, when you hear Quinshon Judkins is coming back, do you think that he just completely dominates this backfield, or it's a 1A, 1B situation with what Sampson's shown?
I think it will be a 1A, 1B. I also don't think it's going to be 1A for Judkins anytime soon. You can't just miss all of camp, all of those reps, and come back as a 1A. It's going to take him time to get ingratiated in the offense, and we'll see how long that actually does take. Obviously, they drafted him for a reason, though, so I don't think this backfield's turning over to Sampson. But I am interested by Sampson's role in the passing game. I agree with Jacob. It's unsustainable, but he's showing us what we always talk about on Beyond the Box Score, which is just because a player didn't do it in college doesn't mean he can't do it. And Sampson is a player who had opportunities in the passing game in college, took advantage of them, just wasn't featured in that role in that offense. And I think it's another example of Stefanski fitting the talent to the scheme.
Jacob, you and I were both in the last month before the season kind of having this, oh no, it can't work for Garrett Wilson. There's just, with this low of pass volume and this, I mean, probably below average of a passer, we would have said, maybe not terrible of a passer. And in week 1, the box score for Justin Fields looks like, oh, wow, against the Steelers, he just figured out how to play quarterback. How much of that are you buying, and have you just reversed course on Wilson? Because I kind of want to.
Yeah, I moved him up a little bit. I do think it's still an extremely fragile formula you're dealing with here for him to be a high upside play like we saw in week 1. Because I think his route number was like, he ran like 20 routes or something like that. And so it's really hard. I mean, Zay Flowers was the same way last week, where with that type of route number, it's really hard to be productive. It just is, especially if you're playing with Justin Fields and not Lamar Jackson. So you're going to have down weeks for sure. And because of the offensive limitations, I don't know how often he's actually going to be giving us. This might be one of his best weeks of the whole season. He almost got into the end zone twice, though. So, like,
right.
And Fields legitimately played well. It wasn't just box score numbers. Like, he actually did play well last week. Charting had him as, like, one of the most accurate quarterbacks in week 1.
Dan, what do we do with that for a guy? And I've talked about it quite a bit this summer. Like, Justin Fields did improve as a passer every year before this one. Right. And he improved as the way he played quarterback. The sack rate went down, even though it's still too high. And so he had shown improvement 3 years in a row. We get this week 1 spike week from Fields. And a lot of people have brought up the fact that even when Justin Fields was mid as a quarterback, he had spike weeks. So should we be that moved by one spike week?
Well, I think we should be moved by the fact that it looks a little different than a lot of his other spike weeks. It was done via the passing game more than usual. And I haven't got a chance yet. I really want to watch the tape of that game because I have a lot of respect for the Steelers' defensive scheme and just the talent they have on that defensive side of the ball. But I would imagine that a combination of two things are happening. One, he fits this scheme. This scheme may fit his skill set as a passer better than any other scheme he's been in. Two, the rapport with Garrett Wilson is standing out. But three, this is the big one for me because I did get a chance to watch a little bit of these cut-ups. Membu and Fashanu just looked absolutely fantastic at the two tackle positions for the Jets in week one. Dominant, really, if you consider some of the matchups and the players they were going against. If he gets elite tackle play all year or borderline elite tackle play, it could be a new Justin Fields because it certainly looked like that in the highlights. I do want to get to the tape, though, on him.
We're going to take our first break. When we come back, we're going to stick with the Jets. Who knew we'd spend the first 15 minutes on the Browns and the Jets going into week one? But I want to ask Jacob about Breece Hall right after this break.
You can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. So even if you can't count on accurate expiration dates,
that is a rookie mistake,
or people appreciating your fashion sense,
Jim, the crowd is not on board here.
you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS, streaming on Paramount Plus.
Glad we wear our good jerseys.
Yeah. So, Jacob, we heard all the offseason with the Jets are going to be this major committee at the running back position. Braylon Allen, they like him more than they like Breece Hall. We get to week one, Breece Hall dominated touches at least. And watching that game, it was like, how could anybody think that you would want to give more carries to Braylon Allen than Breece Hall? Yeah. Look at Breece Hall. He's so awesome. Is this just a case of like Braylon Allen looks really good in shorts and coaches get excited about him, but it's all Breece Hall?
Heath, did you know that Breece Hall goes beyond the box score?
I did not know that Breece Hall goes beyond the box score.
Yeah, Breece saw the tweet that I sent out that like Breece had 90 yards after contact in week one, which was more than he had in any game last year, and then like put it on his Instagram as like fuel, you know. It just cracks me up. Yeah, he played amazing. I don't really see how you give Braylon Allen the ball much, but I do think based off what we saw in week one and what we heard all offseason that they're probably going to do that when in scoring distance.
Right.
And I do think that Braylon Allen looked better of the two this preseason, which is a small sample size, but so is week one, you know, in terms of reading the blocking scheme, especially on just like getting what's there up the middle.
Right.
And so I think that's probably going to be his role. I'm a little bit nervous about overreacting to this 1 week when it comes to Breece, just based off the usage. His route rate, the percentage of the team dropbacks where he ran a route was really low. It was like 30%. And so that is weird. I was hoping that would be more like 60% or something like that. But of course, it's great to see him make explosive plays and to just lead the backfield in general and look like clearly the best player there.
Okay, that was enough positive talk, Dan. Are the Dolphins dead?
Well, defensively, they are certainly dead. So we start with that. I just watched tape because I had to watch the Daniel Jones tape. I had to be like, what the heck just happened here? And that was one of the most pathetic defensive performances I've ever seen. They were just flooding deep intermediate zones and with ease, the Colts. Good jobs to Shane Steichen. As far as the offense side of the ball goes, I have unfortunately not had a chance to watch that side of the tape yet, but we can kind of judge based on what we saw from the broadcast angle that a few things are going on. One, the rapport with Tua and Tyreek is seemingly cooked. Tua does not look good out there in my mind from what I've seen. Just anticipate all the throws that he was sticking in when that offense was cooking. He's just not making accurately right now. And I don't know why that's the case from a timing standpoint, but the one thing I think we can take away that's good, and Jacob touched on this on Twitter, is Devon Achane before the second half where it was just a blowout and they changed things. Devon Achane's role was still basically as we saw last year, maybe even better.
Right.
So that would be the one positive I have to take away from this offense. Achane could still be an RB1.
Achane's my number one running back this week. I 0% concern, 0% downgrade for me on him. Jacob, we're going to talk about the Lions in a minute, and you kind of made reference to we don't want to overreact to 1 week. And I think it's really interesting the way people like the Dolphins play the Patriots this week. And a lot of us, including myself, had Drake Maye as a top 12 quarterback in week one against the Raiders. He wasn't anywhere close to as bad as Tua. Like Tua, 3 turnovers, 3 sacks. The whole thing was just such a joke of a disaster. But Drake Maye wasn't good. The Patriots' offensive line wasn't good. These two teams play each other. The Dolphins are currently favored. And when I look at most of the early rankings, Drake Maye is right back in the top 12 quarterbacks, and Tua's fallen outside of the top 24.
Yeah, I was really surprised to see the Dolphins at 14th in implied points this week, right up there with the Broncos, the 49ers, the Jaguars, the Eagles, the Commanders. So Vegas, at least, is willing to give them another chance. It did look really bad, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And that has me excited for Drake. I think that's why people have him ranked high, as he has the rushing, and then he also could give us like an explosive game against this defense. And if that happens again, then like if it feels like we're just into the bad vibes and all of the like forced stuff with Tua again, and I want no part of that. So it's basically just A-Chan for me, like you guys said.
I think this game will be a shootout. I would not suggest, like in a super flex league, selling to a low or just sending him to the bench. I think the Dolphins have a pretty good game this week. I'm not that down on Waddle. If he could just play a whole game without hurting something, that'd be awesome. But Dan, did you, like, in that context, not maybe making too much out of week 1 for Tua, but was there anything from Drake Maye that you thought, okay, this looks better?
So May obviously so thinking of this matchup, like May versus the Raiders versus May versus the Dolphins, and why he could blow up versus the Dolphins versus kind of a, I don't want to say slower start versus the Raiders, but just maybe not the start we hoped for. His connection with Kayshon Boutte, it was really phenomenal. And Boutte was a player who at one point was viewed as like a first round prospect, had some weird stuff go on off the field at LSU, kind of fell off the map. But I thought they had a great connection going in that first game. And so if there's one area where I'm looking to attack the Dolphins, it's the areas that Boutte can win down the field. And that's always what I thought. May, when he entered the NFL, I thought he'd be a merchant on the intermediate middle, on the in-breakers, and then down the field. So I think, like Jacob said, it sets up for a possibility for explosive plays. I just need to see it first here. And I worry on the Dolphins side of the ball, just if, as far as you predicted, maybe a shootout it goes into a shootout. Their offensive line is so bad. Like, I'm not so sure they can sustain a shootout right now.
That might be true. I will just say, like, relative to how they threw the ball, according to True Media, Drake Maye did have a slightly higher catchable rate, 89% to 87%. Drake Maye also had a worse bad throw rate, 13% to 11%. And that's the kind of thing I noticed, Jacob, in watching that game. First off, I don't think the wide receivers are any better than they were last year. So that discourages me for Maye. But the other thing was he makes a lot of really good throws. It seems like once or twice a drive, he makes a Caleb Williams throw.
Yeah, the charting on May was about what it was last year, where there's ups and downs for sure. And I think that's what we can expect at this point. But he was so good against pressure last year, and then he's so good at creating with his legs that he can do some like really surprising stuff. Like he was able to engineer an offense that was basically right at league average when he was in. And before he was in, that offense was averaging like 120 passing yards per game. And so I don't want to judge him too harshly for, not having the best accuracy data within this structure where he kind of has to force stuff. I think we're just waiting on Kyle Williams to get on the field. If there's any hope of like a wide receiver helping this situation, because I agree, he wasn't getting a whole lot from his pass catchers in this one.
Another team that has offensive line issues too, despite the investments they made.
Oh, they're bad, and their defense just gave up 364 yards to Geno. Yeah. So as bad as we think the Dolphins' defense is, the Patriots' pass defense is really awful as well.
That's what I'm most intrigued by in this spot is like how they'll hold up. If they can't block this Dolphins team, I am going to be very worried. Chop Robinson is really good, but other than that, but they might not. The Patriots allowed the most quick pressures of any team in week 1.
In week 1, it looked like that.
Just real quick for Dynasty managers, because we were very excited about Travion Henderson, and I'll throw RJ Harvey into the mix as well. Even the lower end guys like Bashal Tutin that didn't actually get the work in week 1. We don't care at all from a Dynasty perspective. Is everybody in agreement with that?
Yes.
Okay. And I think there's
don't you call Bashal Tutin a lower end guy?
Well, I mean, for now.
I just messed with you.
They traded 1 or 2 more running backs, and he'll be a starter. So let's go ahead and jump to the Lions, because I think that's one that people will be really interested about. And I don't want to make too much of it. We talk about confirmation bias all the time, and I spent 4 months talking about the Lions not being as good without Ben Johnson, and so then they have a really bad offensive game, and it's like, they're terrible. Micah Parsons is obviously awesome. The Packers defense is a problem for opposing offenses. But Jacob, there was something that stood out from that game that has you a little bit concerned from week 1.
Yeah, the Fantasy Points data suite just updated their tracking from week 1, and so I can look and see what percentage of routes they graded each receiver as winning. They watch every route and grade it. And they only gave Jameson Williams 1 win, 1 successful route on 42 routes. That is concerning. These things can fluctuate week to week. AJ Brown got a 0% rate in week 1.
That checks out.
I mean, yeah, he didn't have a
watched
good
that
game.
game.
I don't want to assume that AJ Brown is toast, though.
Right.
And in the same way, we don't need to, sound the panic alarm here with JMO, with Amon-Ra St. Brown or anything. But I did think that Chicago's offense looked significantly better under Ben Johnson, which is what we expect. And Detroit's offense looked a lot worse. They used fewer play action, pre-snap motion, efficiency boosting plays. And they kind of just asked the receivers to go win, which is what they told us they were going to do. And it didn't go particularly well. With that said, Green Bay legitimately might have the best defense in the league. Like, they were getting pressure without ever blitzing. Just 3 or 4 guys were constantly getting to Jared Goff, and they just sit back and make life hard on the receivers. So what we saw was a ton of Sam Laporta. It could just be matchup based that he got so much volume in this spot.
Right.
But we do have a different, coach here in a different situation than we have last year. And Laporta is entering year 3. The one, I think, signal from this game is Laporta's route rate was higher than it was in any game last year. So that is definitely encouraging for him going forward.
And one of the craziest stats ever, I believe Jameer Gibbs had the lowest yardage total ever. He is basically running back Wan'Dale Robinson now, Dan. I think most people think, well, they're playing the Bears this week. They always destroy the Bears. Everything's going to be fine. I wonder if Ben Johnson being on the Bears helps the Bears to exploit some of the weaknesses of the Lions offense.
It's definitely possible. I mean, for me, the bigger thing with the Lions, and I do agree with what Jacob said, like just looking at the route combinations and how open some of those Bears receivers were versus the Lions game, which I watched in full, it definitely seems like the scheme's playing a role. But to me, I wonder how much the actual offensive line is playing a role. I talked about this all offseason. You can't just lose Frank Ragnow, the best center in football, and then change all 3 of their interior offensive line players are different starters than last year. And what I saw was a team that became one-dimensional fast in that game. They could not generate any push in the run game. Maybe it's the Packers defense being the best in the NFL. We'll see. They didn't really have this problem at all under Ben Johnson and with Frank Ragnow on the field. So if that's the case, like you look at some of these teams, the Giants, the Lions, these week 1 teams that just could generate no push in the run game, they became so one-dimensional, and that just kills your offense immediately. So, and Texans are a good example. There's plenty of teams who are fitting into this bill. I hope the Lions aren't one of those teams. They still have Penei Sewell. They still have talent on the offensive line. But man, it did not look good against the Packers, and that has to change for them to generate offense in my mind.
Jacob, I have Brian Thomas Jr. at wide receiver 6 in my Dynasty rankings. I am updating those this week. They will be live on the site, and we'll try to have that every week during the season, most weeks during the season, majority. But I have Travis Hunter at wide receiver 10 in my Dynasty wide receiver rankings, and I was a little bit concerned. I didn't change my projections, but I did talk a little bit this offseason about how, it's possible that Travis Hunter impacts Brian Thomas's target share. Week 1, you've highlighted Trevor Lawrence was just really, really bad with almost no pressure at all. And it looked like to me he had better rapport with Hunter than Thomas. Do you think this is more of a battle for targets than maybe people thought?
No, I'm not worried about BTJ yet. I am worried about Trevor, and so like that might lead us to more inconsistent games for either of these guys. If he can't get first downs and support a good offensive environment, then all the numbers shrink, and week to week you might get games where BTJ has 6 targets or Travis Hunter has 5 targets or whatever. So I guess in that sense, like it's a little bit different than last year where Travis Hunter wasn't there. But I do think that like if Trevor Lawrence can play better, then we're good. We're exactly where we thought we were going into the year. And he's got a good test here against Cincinnati where the receivers should be open a lot, but the Bengals got a ton of pressure last week without blitzing, and that could be a little bit different than what we saw last week for Jacksonville, where Trevor has to get heated up more because, like you said, he had a 13% pressure rate for Trevor Lawrence against the Panthers.
So, Dan, I have 3 rookie wide receivers. It's funny, this was such a bad wide receiver class, is what we were told, and it may not be a very deep wide receiver class, but I currently have 3 of them inside my top 16 in the Dynasty wide receiver rankings. So, I thought it was a pretty good sign for Hunter, if only that he's an offensive player who might play a little bit of defense right now. It was obviously one of the best debuts by a rookie wide receiver we've seen in Emeka Egbuka, scoring 2 touchdowns. And after a summer of love in Tampa, Terrell McMillan, it was fine. We love him. How would you rank in terms of Dynasty right now, Hunter, McMillan, and Egbuka?
Great question. I think for me, I have to stick with where I was at after the draft and just go with my evaluations, Hunter, McMillan, and then Egbuka in that order. But, a little bit more of this, a little bit more of what we're seeing. I have to at least consider the offensive environment. I mean, it's just, there's no better offensive environment for those 3 than what Egbuka has. And Egbuka was a great player on film at Ohio State. So if that's the case, like, despite wanting to stick to my film evaluations, I thought Hunter was the best on tape by far. And McMillan has just that different level of, I guess, upside based on his athleticism and his size. I have to consider moving Egbuka up because Baker Mayfield is a phenomenal thrower of the football. That last touchdown he threw to Egbuka, I don't think there was a better placed football on any throw by any quarterback this weekend than that throw on that post by Baker. And it's a good route by Egbuka, but it's a perfect throw. And so does McMillan have that with Bryce Young? I'm not sure. Trevor Lawrence, that was a nightmare film to watch. I hope it improves there as you just talked about. But it's time to start considering moving Egbuka up. He's a great, phenomenal player. He gets open. He can be used in a variety of roles. And also he's being used down the field more than I kind of expected he would be, which is another reason to consider moving him up. Because as Jacob and I talk about a lot, and I think it's important to note in Dynasty and any player evaluation, don't always evaluate these players based on what they did at college, because some coaches see their skill set and see a different role for them at the NFL level, and they can thrive in that role. And Egbuka might be showing that early.
Well, Rashee Rice is a
Perfect
great example of that.
Yeah.
Like, what he does for the Chiefs is not what he did in college at all. Jacob, would you agree with that order? Hunter, McMillan, and Egbuka, or are they all in the same tier now?
I'm fine putting them in the same tier, which is definitely moving Egbuka up from where I've been. I've got the route win rates. 19% for Emeka Egbuka is stellar.
Right.
I think he looked so smooth. That's truly like so good. For comparison, T-Mac, who I thought had a good game, was at 15%. So he's like in the Garrett Wilson, Puka Nacua, Jamar Chase range. That was a really encouraging signal for him in week 1. Travis Hunter had a 0% rate. I watched every route for Travis Hunter and BTJ, and it wasn't what I was hoping for. They didn't do as much horizontally breaking stuff as I was hoping for from in the first game with Liam Cohen. I think it's worth like letting people know that like it's just 1 week. I just want to reemphasize that for both Liam Cohen, for Clint Kubiak, for a lot of these, play designers who we were really excited for. They didn't, maybe show everything in week 1, especially like the Jaguars. They're playing with a pretty big lead. But when I did watch Travis, like there was a lot of running into space there was nothing to be done. And then there was also just like, it was just a bunch of short slants and just slot stuff.
I wish Trevor had thrown that deep ball to Hunter like 6 inches higher.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. That was one of the few opportunities he got down the field, and he looked good there. I don't want to overreact to it, but it wasn't like nothing stood out to me when I was watching it or like got me feeling real excited about it. So I guess if anything, I think these 2 are pushing closer to him. And if you already were like on the T-Mac over Hunter side, like I'm fine signing off on that. I feel really good about T-Mac.
They've definitely moved closer. I would say Egbuka's moved Like he's right behind McMillan for me now. They're back to back in the rankings, and they were probably separated by 10 spots back in May. So yeah, Abuka's climbing the fastest. Another climber this week, Dan, Keon Coleman. I was the Keon Coleman skeptic because of what the Bills had done offensively. We found a cure for that, though. If they just play the Ravens, run 78 offensive plays, and throw 46 passes, then there's no volume concerns in the Bills passing game. Did you guys, and you can start, Dan, you can just follow up, Jacob. Did you guys see stuff from Keon Coleman that makes you think this is like a legit, he's the Bills wide receiver one and a must start wide receiver, or is it just 1 week?
I think a lot of it was game script, but Coleman is a player I've been super high on to begin with. And I think the one positive sign you could suggest, though, it did kind of come late when they needed it. And this is the problem I've always had with Joe Brady and the volume of that passing game, was just those outside the number throws, those stop routes, those little outbreakers down the field in the intermediate vertical range. With a talent like Allen, who could really just rip the football with velocity and put it in a good spot, that's an almost unstoppable route if you can get the rapport down and develop it. And we've seen that through the years with some of the big X receivers in the NFL. That could be something that they just continue to pepper when they need it. And then the red zone stuff was interesting to me. I mean, obviously the touchdown was a little bit lucky at the end, but designed for the 2-point conversion, I still think that's something we saw throughout camp. He was their guy to go to. It's him and Kincaid. So if I'm looking at the Bills offense, I'm realizing there's going to be games where the game script isn't going to look like that. They're a really good team. But at the same time, I've seen a lot of concerns this offseason that I didn't really factor into my rankings on the Bills defense. And maybe this Bills defense just isn't going to be as good as projected, which could lead to more of these types of game scripts for Coleman. So I'm definitely high on Coleman. I was more enthused with his role than Kincaid's. Kincaid, it seems like the same old role for Kincaid, which is super disappointing for me because I think he's a talented player.
Yep, same here. I'm not overreacting to it. I was pretty excited, pretty enthusiastic about, it was easily just like such a fun game to get a little too juiced up about. But yeah, I think the game environment really played into it. The more that I've dug into it, his route win rates, success, separation score, all that stuff is not looking very good. He only had a 14% horizontally breaking route rate. I was hoping that more of those types of routes would be incorporated this year, but it was mostly just straight line or pretend you're running a straight line and come right back, which he won. He won a few of those on the sideline where he just stopped and Allen put it right on him. So it looks good. It looks better than last year. But I think he's basically who we thought he is. Nothing that I've seen changes.
I'm going to throw you a curveball, Jacob, while I ask Dan a question, because you brought up somebody that I wanted to talk about that I didn't put in the notes. And so if you could get me some Marvin Harrison Jr. information in the next 30 to 60 seconds in terms of win rate and horizontally breaking routes, I'd really like to get to that. Dan, I'm going to make a couple trade offers to you for Keon Coleman, and I just want to know if you're taking them or not. Luther Burden.
No.
You'd rather have Keon Coleman than Luther Burden in Dynasty?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I still have Burden higher, but I'm trying to find other young guys. Matthew Golden.
I would take Golden over Coleman in Dynasty.
And let's go one more. Well, if you took him, Ricky Pearsall.
I will definitely take Pearsall. Pearsall looks really good.
Mm-hmm. I'd move Coleman up. He's wide receiver 37 for me in Dynasty. There's some vets ahead of him that rebuilders shouldn't even consider over him. There's some young guys ahead of him that contenders shouldn't consider over him. So he's probably a top 36 Dynasty wide receiver for most people. Jacob, I don't know if I gave you enough time or not, but
you're good.
I watched that Cardinals game, and I was low on Marvin Harrison this week, and he had one of his good weeks, but it was 5 for 70 and a touchdown on 6 targets. And it seems like a game log, just looking at the box score, that fits in perfectly with his 2024 season.
Yeah. So I brought up on our podcast with Adam that we actually did see them use a lot more horizontally breaking routes for Marvin Harrison last year after the bye week during the second half of the season. And it didn't change anything for his fantasy production. I think those routes are good. I think he won on those routes a lot. And I just want to bring that up and defend Drew Petzing, I guess, here.
Yeah. Okay.
It's Kyler. Until Kyler shows us something that we've never seen, or there's a different quarterback, then we are where we are with Marvin Harrison. And I don't think it really matters that much if he's an 85 overall or a 90 overall. He's a really, really good player. I don't really feel good about the fantasy equation. You can get weeks like last week. I think he's basically exactly appropriately priced, is where I'm at with him. Because long term, he could be a top 5, 8, 10 fantasy receiver on a year-to-year basis, but I don't think we're getting there anytime soon. I wanted to address the Keon Coleman thing. All those players you named, I would definitely take over him. The only exception would be if you're in a best ball league, not a managed league for Dynasty, where you're trying to win this year. I would take him over Luther Burden, but everybody else, it's pretty easy. Breece Hall looked so good in week 1. It was like everything you'd want to see, everything that you maybe expected might happen did happen. The only real concern is like everybody on the Niners is getting hurt apparently.
Including Purdy,
Again, yeah. So that sucks. But all the charting data looks good. The usage looks good. And then you watch the film and he looks really good. Kyle Shanahan knows exactly how to use him. I think he's really a much better mover than I realized.
Yes.
Yeah, he's pretty nuts. The only time that he really loses is when he runs himself into the ground because he's moving too fast. And if that improves, as he gets older and more technically refined in his craft, it's good luck covering this guy. He's a freak. Same thing for Matthew Golden. And I think he's actually maybe in more control than Breece Hall is right now over his movements.
Yeah.
That guy's nuts. The role needs to increase for him to be fantasy relevant. But in week 1, right away, there are multiple routes where it's gone, easy touchdown if Jordan Love sees him.
Right.
And that might be a really good, it's tough to buy low on rookie first rounders after 1 week, but that was pretty discouraging usage in week 1. And the main sentiment I've seen is, well, it's still the Packers. They're not going to feature anybody. Too bad for Matthew Golden. Let's take our second break. When we come back, I got a few more guys I want to ask the Beyond the Box Score crew about.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
So I want to get you guys out of here in time to get ready for your next show. And I know you normally do 3-hour podcasts. So are you going to cut the Beyond the Box Score podcast down to 2 hours today since you did an hour with me?
The in-season ones have been more tamed.
Yeah. Okay. This Tuesday show, though, I think is probably our longest show.
It is
going to
be
guess.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to be here with me. JSN and Zay Flowers. You mentioned Zay already, Jacob. And I know everyone has to be very excited about Jackson Smith-Njigba. He's a top 12 wide receiver for me this week. In Dynasty, he's currently my number 8 wide receiver, and he may go higher than that this year. I'm not putting any constraints on him. I did kind of have a philosophical question. When you see an offensive game plan like the one the Seahawks rolled out in week 1, what I tweeted about it was, this is not a serious offensive approach. Nobody throws the ball 60% of the time to one guy. Nobody has 4 or 5 players getting all of the targets. And nobody really runs that much as they did early in the game. They had to throw a little bit late. But how much do we adjust JSN's target share or expectations based on what their plan was in week 1?
I truly it feels almost like Atlanta Falcons week 1 last year, where it's what am I watching? Kind of you described. I wonder if it's because Clint Kubiak and Kyle Shanahan know each other. So he's I know my outside zone stuff's not going to work against him. I know all the play action. They know how to defend this. They go against it in practice every single day. I don't know. What I do know is that Jackson Smith-Njigba looked freaking awesome. Yeah. He was winning consistently. There were 2 at least routes where he had a win, and Sam Darnold just missed them. And so if the timing continues to get better between those two, sky's the limit. 19% route win rate, which is really, really good. I think everything you wanted to see from him is there to go outside of the slot and immediately just win repeatedly when no one else on the offense was doing anything. So it's all they have to do is stop you, and they really couldn't.
I want to talk about the rookie tight ends other than Harold Fannin for a minute. At least we got to say his name again. Tyler Warren, Dan, comes out, and it was the Dolphins. Catches 3 passes for 40 yards on the opening drive, I believe. And then it slowed down a little bit after that. It was almost like the Dolphins did some research after the first drive and realized the Colts drafted a tight end in round 1. Coleston, Loveland playing behind Cole Kmet, or at least being targeted behind Cole Kmet. I don't know the route data yet, and Jake will probably tell us in just a moment. I think there's been a healthy debate between Loveland and Warren. And I've talked to people on both sides of it all summer. Is it simple enough right now, Dan, to just say, well, Warren's ahead for now?
I still long-term would prefer Loveland. I just believe in the talent a little bit more. But if you're playing to win now, you should definitely be prioritizing Warren. Any redraft league, you should be prioritizing Warren. And ultimately speaking, this might be another situation where I have to prioritize the environment and the role over my evaluation of the two players, because it's not like Warren was too far behind for me on film. Different type of tight end, but man, I got to say I did watch the entire film of Daniel Jones' debut with the Colts, and they're designing the ball to get to Warren. This offense is going to go through Warren and Pittman, and they're going to find ways to get them the football early and often. And that's just something that we saw last year with Brock Bowers' breakout. It's the only tight end we really had last year in that role from the rookie class was Bowers. So I don't really see why that would change. I'm just looking through the notes here. Just middle of the field throws to Warren. They got it to Warren underneath from condensed formations. He lined up in a variety of ways. They just missed, like Jones just missed Warren for a touchdown at one point that would have just made his game look nuclear. They had bootleg rollouts designed for him, which was something that Jones leaned on early and often with the Giants under Dable. There were two. There was one in the intermediate. There was one short. So just a lot of design for Warren. And you mentioned it did fall off a little bit, but that's kind of game script related, right? Like they were up 30-0, the Colts. They really didn't need to put the gas on the pedal. So as far as redraft goes, like I think it could be just an absolute breakout season for Warren. And I would easily move him up into my top five tight ends for redraft. And dynasty wise, like I should strongly consider moving him over Loveland at this point.
Jacob, I want to talk about somebody else on the Colts. So like you can talk about Loveland too, but
I'll just say for Dynasty, which is what we're doing here, Loveland has the quarterback, which we don't have any idea what's going to happen in Indianapolis long term.
Does he?
I mean, he at least has a chance.
he might, yeah.
He has the coach,
right,
and all the reasons we believe in him, and he's younger.
Right. Oh, yeah, he is definitely younger. I've had those two so close that it doesn't take much of a change in my outlook for this year to put one or the other over the other ahead of the other one. But yeah, I think I'm not concerned about Coleston Loveland at all, other than concerns that Caleb Williams couldn't keep it together for more than 1.5 drives.
It's Brian Flores. I mean, that's a really crazy spot to be in week one. Yeah, that's fair.
Dan mentioned the wide receivers because Michael Pittman was kind of out of everybody's mind for this year. And I think definitely for Dynasty at his age, like if you're not a top 36 wide receiver and you're 28, 29 years old, why do I even want you on my roster? Josh Downs just disappeared. It's all Tyler Warren. It's all Michael Pittman. How panicked are you on Josh Downs? And do you think with maybe the Pat Surtain matchup this week, we saw Iomanner see a huge spike or an opportunity in his first game because Calvin Ridley was basically not available.
Right.
I'm not sure Michael Pittman's going to be an available option this week.
That's an interesting. Yeah,
is
sorry.
It Elick? Is it Elick? Like, are we now going to not know how to pronounce his first or last name?
I don't know.
I can't say any of it, so I just say it both ways.
Ayumanor. I don't know though. I'm
Ayumanor.
I think it is.
You say Elick?
I say Elick Iomanner.
No,
that's
it's
where I've landed.
Ayumanor, I think. But
I've never even heard Ayumanor.
Definitely not Iomanor.
This is beyond the box score.
Yeah, we can't pronounce the name. Look, as far as the Colts situation goes with Downs, I still believe so much in the talent and the player that this to me seems like a buy low opportunity. This offense will change and evolve, but as it stands right now, I went into the season thinking it's going to be one of those two, Warren or Downs. There's no possible way this offense can sustain both of them. And it looks right now like there's just design plays for Warren. And I'll say this, like we talked a lot about, buy-in on Downs, right? Because of what Wan'Dale Robinson did with Daniel Jones last year. It's a very different offense than the one that Dable ran. Credit to Shane Steichen for just understanding football a little bit better or a lot better than Brian Dable at this stage of their careers. So if the offense is changed and it's not like that offense the Giants ran last year, I don't think we're going to see a Wan'Dale level target share for Downs this year. So I believe in the talent, but it might take some time.
I cannot talk about it without crying.
Yeah, because we love Josh Downs. Also, maybe he's just hurt and he's like,
Right.
they're nursing him. They're, lightening the load at the beginning of the
I
season.
think that makes sense. It was his lowest route rate. Second lowest route rate of his entire career. His route, like people are like, well, this is what it's always going on as he comes off the field and, run plays and stuff like that. His route rate is 75% over the first 2 seasons. It was 50% in this game. So it was significantly different for sure.
Right.
We're going to do some rapid fire questions here to end. We'll just a couple minutes left. I'll let Jacob answer each question first. Dan can follow up. Really, it can be just one word answers if you want. For contenders, is Debo back?
Yeah.
Yes.
Love it. For everybody, Zay Flowers breakout?
Yeah.
I think so. Just needs a little bit of touchdown luck. So yes.
Is that a follow up? Does that kill Mark Andrews?
I think the way that they get their points is so different that Andrew should be fine, but you're going to have weeks like this one that we just had.
As far as nobody scores at the tight end position, I think Andrew will be fine. He'll just have 8 touchdowns and you kind of have to just start him and hope to get it. Like, who else are you starting at tight end?
This one's for Dan only. What week does Jackson Dart start?
Oh boy.
I can't believe that they're talking about it already. It was like, we didn't even get confirmation on Russ week 2 until yesterday or something.
Yeah.
That shocked me. They were already
People
here.
love Jackson Dart, and Russ looks so bad in week 1. I'll do the week against the Saints. I think that's week 4 or 5.
Okay, back to Jacob. Chris Olave stays healthy. Is he a top 30 wide receiver this year?
Oh, yeah.
Loved the role and usage for Olave. Came at the expense a little bit. And you guys tell me if this is what you saw as well. I want to stay on that Saints offense because Kellen Moore has a history of going to teams with great running backs and they catch less passes. What I watched is that the Saints now have a competent scheme in terms of getting wide receivers open before the pass rush gets there. So there's not as much reason to dump off to Alvin Kamara because receivers are open earlier. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah.
Checks out with me.
Yeah.
I still think Spencer Rattler's terrible.
He is. And it's a problem.
Who scores the most fantasy points for the Patriots at wide receiver this year?
I'm going to go Kayshon Boutte.
Yeah. Booty.
Booty is still very, very cheap in Dynasty. Somebody might think, he had one good game. I can go sell him now. This one's for Jacob only. What week is Bashal Tutin's first start?
Let's go with week 10.
Week 10? Travis Etienne looked good.
You're going to have to be patient, I think.
Travis Etienne looked very, very good. He might be the league-winning running back from the late rounds this year. One more time. I let Dan do it the first time. So, Jacob, give everybody the pitch for the Beyond the Box score that you guys are getting ready to go record.
Yeah, we're going to do waivers. We're going to talk about some who can you drop, like Cam Scattaboo, Jadon Blue. Like, what do you do with some of these players that you're maybe feeling pinched on? Is it worth holding them, or would we drop them for Harold Fannin? That kind of situation, what we're looking at here. And then we're just also going to go position by position, look at the leaders from week 1 and what's real and what's not, and just kind of talk about some of the players that we haven't got to yet. Give our film evaluation. That's going to be the backbone of the Tuesday show. It's just me and Dan kind of coming together and being like, okay, we've been totally immersed, trying to catch up on everything we just saw. Like, where are we at? What can we help people understand better about what we just saw?
Programming note, wanted to let you guys know that next Tuesday will be a Adam Pfeiffer from FTN. So that will be great. The week after that, 9/23, will be a one-man mailbag. So if you've got Dynasty questions, FFT Dynasty at paramount.com. We got Matt Donnelly coming up. And then we get to October, we'll bring Matt Waldman in to talk about what's changed with the rookies. That's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, Nada. Thank you to everybody who's listening. We will talk to you next Tuesday.